Happy Epiphany! This is the season of the church where we hear all the stories of the beginning of Jesus' ministry. We're no longer in the season of Christmas, and we're in the season of light. Typically, in our Sunday school classrooms, we would have taken a 2-week break, and we come back and we have lessons of Jesus being baptized by John. And so we started a tradition of celebrating Epiphany, where we gather and hear the stories in the Bible between when Jesus was born and he was a baby and when he becomes an adult and is baptized by John in the River Jordan. So the stories that we typically see are Simeon, the story of Simeon, blessing and receiving Jesus, the story of Anna, a prophetess who also had been promised by God that she would see Jesus. And then we have the story of the wise men, the family's flight to Egypt, and Jesus is found in the temple. So in the story of Jesus found in the temple, he's 12 years old, and then we don't really have any more stories until he's an adult. So I hope you enjoy this repurposed Epiphany celebration, and may God bless you and shine light into you and your life. Simeon's Secret by Janice Kramer from an Arch book. A happy man was Simeon. This is the reason why. The Lord had told him long ago that he would never die until he saw the promised one, the great Messiah, God's own Son. Old Simeon believed. He knew that God would make his word come true. He kept his secret years and years and waited every day. But Simeon was not a man to waste his time away. Every morning he'd get out of bed and comb the hair upon his head and hurry to the temple where he'd worship God with praise and prayer. Then afterward, as he would stroll along the winding street, the children of Jerusalem would follow at his feet. They'd say to him, "Please stop a while." Then he would look at them and smile and sit right down upon the ground with all the children gathered round. And then he'd tell a story. What a story it would be! Perhaps the one about the funny little dancing flea, or one about the sneezing snail or Wumpledew, the wheezing whale. The boys and girls missed not a word. Such stories they had never heard. The little ones loved Simeon. He was the children's friend. But still he longed to see the child that God himself would send. Would he be dark? Would he be fair? Would he have straight or curly hair? And would that child of holy birth feel loved and wanted here on earth? One morning early, Simeon was wakened from his bed by people talking on the street. He heard what one man said. "In Bethlehem, I heard the word that Christ is born, the promised Lord. There in a stable, shepherds say, they saw him on a bed of hay." "Can this be true?" cried Simeon. "Lord, show the child to me." He prayed and waited day by day the newborn Christ to see. Arise, good Simeon, arise, and go without delay, for in the temple you would find him this very day. It was the voice of God he heard, and Simeon obeyed his word. He hurried down the winding street as fast as he could move his feet. He climbed the temple stairway with a quick and easy stride, and stood right by the door to watch as people went inside. His eyes looked into every face that passed him in that holy place, and then he saw, amid the crowd, a sight that made him cry aloud, a mother and father with a little baby boy. Old Simeon could not hold back his happiness and joy. He hurried over to the child, and Jesus looked at him and smiled. Good Simeon could hardly speak, for tears were running down his cheek. He took the baby in his arms and held him to his chest. O God of mercy, God of might, thy name be ever blessed. I've seen thy Son, the promised one. Now let thy holy will be done, and take me soon to live with thee in heaven for eternity. With that, he turned and started home along the winding street. And there, of course, the children came to trail behind his feet. Oh, Simeon, please stop a while, he answered with a friendly smile, and sat right down upon the ground with all the children gathered round. He didn't tell the story of the flea or of the snail. He didn't even tell the one about the funny whale. The story that he told to them was of the babe of Bethlehem, and all the children, big and small, enjoyed that story best of all. Simeon wasn't the only one in the temple there that saw Jesus on that day. Luke chapter 2, verses 36 through 38 tell us that there was also a prophet, Anna, the daughter of Penuel of the tribe of Asher. She was very old. She had lived with her husband 7 years after her marriage, and then she was a widow until she was 84. She never left the temple, but worshipped night and day, fasting and praying. Coming up to them at that very moment, she gave thanks to God and spoke about the child to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. Anna was recognized as a prophetess. This in of itself is enough to make her fascinating. Messages from the Lord were not at all common during the days when Anna lived, and messages from God brought through a woman were rarer still. Anna had been a widow for the better part of her 84 years, during a time when widows had no means of support besides their children or charity. She lived at the temple probably because she had no place else to live. But she didn't care about that. She made the best of her years by worshiping, praising, and honoring God all of her days. The first thing Anna did when she came across Simeon and Jesus and Mary and Joseph was to give thanks to God. She understood what Jesus meant, not only for the people of Jerusalem, but for the rest of the world. What a day this must have been for Anna. She had been worshiping and praying for most of her days, and she had been in the company of God Almighty on a regular basis. On this day, she was given the great honor of being in the company of Jesus, who came to redeem Jerusalem and the rest of the world and us. So, life for Jesus began in the temple, with people of God looking over him with gladness and realizing God's presence and promises come true. We can see that trusting in God and waiting patiently will be of benefit to us. We also note that the response that Simeon and Anna had was to give thanks and praise and tell others about Jesus. Wise Men. This is from the Children's Illustrated Bible, Stories Retold by Selena Hastings. News of the birth of Jesus spread far and wide. A group of wise men traveled from the east to Jerusalem. When they arrived, they asked everyone, "Where is the child? Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We have seen his star and have come to worship him." Now Herod was king of Judea, and stories soon reached his ears of the coming of the Messiah, a child born to rule. Deeply troubled by the coming of a rival, he summoned together all the priests and lawyers of the Jewish people and asked them in what city the child was to be born. "In Bethlehem," they told him. Then, privately, Herod sent for the wise men, and pretending to be as religious as they, questioned them closely about the star, where they had seen it, what time it had appeared. "Go to Bethlehem," Herod said. "Make a thorough search for the child, and when you have found him, come and tell me, for I too wish to go and worship him." So the wise men left Jerusalem and took the road for Bethlehem. The star guided them all the way until, as they drew near the walls of the little town, it shone even brighter and stopped quite still over the place where Jesus was. As they entered the house, they saw Mary and her small child, and falling to their knees, they worshipped him. Then they opened the heavy boxes they had carried with them, and spread out on the floor the magnificent gifts they had brought. They gave the baby Jesus gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then, having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they went back to their own countries by another route. The Flight into Egypt. This is also from the Children's Illustrated Bible. Soon after the wise men had left, an angel appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Take Mary and the child and go at once to Egypt. There is no time to lose. Herod's men are searching for the child." At this, Joseph awoke and told Mary what they must do. Quietly they crept out of the house and in the darkness made their way through the narrow streets of the town and out into open country. The journey took many days, but at last they arrived safely in Egypt, and there they stayed. Herod, meanwhile, realized that the wise men had tricked him and would not be returning to tell him where Jesus was. He fell into a passionate rage and screamed at anyone who dared come near, threatening with fearful punishment those who stood in his way. Summoning the officer of his guard, he gave an order that every male child in and near Bethlehem under the age of 2 years should be put to death, and this was done. Soon after, Herod himself died. Again, the angel came to Joseph while he slept. "Your enemies are no more," the angel said. "It is now safe for you to return to your homeland." So the family left Egypt. But when Joseph learned that Herod had been succeeded by his son Archelaus as ruler of Judea, he was afraid. So they traveled farther north and settled in the city of Nazareth in Galilee. Jesus is found in the temple, also from the Children's Illustrated Bible. Every year at the festival of Passover, Joseph and Mary went to Jerusalem, as was the custom. When Jesus was 12 years old, they took him with them. After the celebrations had finished, they set off for home, making the long journey as they always did, with a party of friends and relatives. They had been on the road for a whole day before they realized that Jesus was not with them. At first they thought he must be with some of their friends' children, but he was nowhere to be seen. Anxiously, Mary and Joseph returned to Jerusalem, and for 3 days they searched the city without success. Desperate with worry, they decided to go to the temple, and there they saw Jesus. He was sitting in the middle of a group of wise men and teachers, talking, listening, and answering questions. All these distinguished men were amazed at the wisdom and understanding of this child of 12. "How could you have left us like that?" his parents asked him. "Why did you not tell us where you were going to be? For 3 days we have been searching everywhere for you." "But why did you need to search?" Jesus asked, puzzled. "Did you not know that I would be in my Father's house?" Mary and Joseph did not understand what he meant by this. Then Jesus left the temple and returned with his parents to Nazareth and was obedient to them.